I try at times to figure out how he's done it, but that's not my responsibility. It's because he's God, and he is God all by himself. Praise the Lord, Citadel family and friends. It is great, again, to stand before you and to bring to you the word of the Lord. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. This morning, we're taking a departure. I believe we've concluded our assignment in 2 Chronicles. And so we're looking this morning in 2 Samuel chapter 11. 2 Samuel chapter 11. And I want to read a few verses there. This morning, the message comes to us from a conversation that I had a little over a week ago with someone, and we talked about making sure that we've gotten all that we needed to get out of our time in isolation or quarantine, whatever it is. Making sure that we've gotten all of what was intended for us. And not only did we get all that was intended for us, but did we do all that we were assigned to do? Or are you in literally the exact same state mentally, physically, spiritually that you were in before you even entered a time of forced isolation? As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago I said in one of our Bible studies that we have to be careful that we don't sabotage the season of isolation. There's some specific things that God, I believe, intended for us to do, intended for us to be, intended for us to get rid of in this season. For some, you needed to produce. For others, you needed to rest. And my question this morning is, did you fulfill your assignment? If not, we gotta understand what really happens when we abandon our assignment. 2 Samuel chapter 11. I'm reading from the New Living Translation, beginning at verse 1. And I'm not quite sure yet where we will stop, but we'll read until it feels like enough, all right? I hope you're already up on your feet, standing in honor of the word of God. From 2 Samuel chapter 11, beginning at verse 1, in the spring of the year, when kings normally go out to war, David sent Joab and the Israelite army to fight the Ammonites. They destroyed the Ammonite army and laid siege to the city of Rabbah. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. Late one afternoon, after his midday rest, David got out of bed and was walking on the roof of the palace. As he looked out over the city, he noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. He sent someone to find out who she was, and he was told she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her. And when she came to the palace, he slept with her. She had just completed the purification rites after her menstrual period. Then she returned home. Later, when Bathsheba discovered that she was pregnant, she sent David a message saying, "I'm pregnant." Then David sent word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." So Joab sent him to David. I think that's good. I think that's good. Where we actually will probably spend the majority of our time is in verse 1. Pardon me to read it again. In the spring of the year, when kings normally go out to war, David sent Joab and the Israelite army to fight the Ammonites. They destroyed the Ammonite army and laid siege to the city of Rabbah. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. This morning, again, I want to talk about the atrocity of abandoned assignments. Now, in full disclosure, I actually discussed this text about 6 years ago with the same angle and view that I have on this morning, but I believe it's necessary that we revisit it. By way of introduction, I want to ask you a question. And the question is simply this: what's the purpose of purpose? What's the purpose of purpose? Whatever that thing is that you are destined to do and to be. What's the purpose of purpose? You would think, I would think at times, I do think at times, that it would just be enough to just live life. And then at other times I know that there is a distinct assignment that I am required to perform. For an overall view, honestly, of my life, I have to actually take a full investigation of my life to understand why it is and what it is that God has assigned for me to do. But when you happen upon that knowledge, what's the purpose of purpose? I believe whatever that thing is that you are designed to do and to be is not only for the sake of others. The other purpose of purpose is performed in the person who is purposed. Did you get it, or was that too many P's? Let me run it for you again. There's another purpose to purpose. And the other purpose of purpose is performed in the person who is purposed to perform it. When you do a thing, whatever it is that you do, the residue remains of the process that makes you better for having done it. What God has for you is for you, but also what God has for you to do is for you to do. This morning I am purposed to preach, but the process in fulfilling the purpose is filled with other assignments. I had to read, I had to study, I had to pray, I had to isolate myself, but then I had to get a haircut, I had to get the clothes from the cleaners, I had to get my shoes shined, I had to get some rest, I had to shower, I had to get dressed, I had to get to the church. Each of these things is in and of itself an assignment that must be accomplished in order for my purpose to preach to be filled both in me and for the world. Now, not one of those items in and of itself that was mentioned is invaluable or easy to be omitted as an assignment. Because whatever the purpose is, there are by default a multiplicity of assignments attached to the purpose. And I think that one of the challenges that we've got to deal with even this morning is understanding that when we are abandoning assignments, we are sabotaging purpose. A lot of us, we don't know what the purpose is. We don't know what it is that we are destined to do, if you will. But in reality, some of us, the reason we don't know what we are destined to do is because we've shirked on too many assignments. We've had opportunities to do things, but we didn't take the opportunity. And because we didn't take the opportunity, we missed out on the purpose because we didn't perform the assignment. Y'all ain't gonna like me this morning, that's okay. Let me ask you a question. What are the tasks associated with your title? What are the responsibilities that accompany your position? Because in order to be true to who you are and fulfill your assignment, you've got to fulfill each of the tasks associated with your title. You've got to fulfill each of the responsibilities that accompany your position. Husband, wife, son, daughter, member, friend, employee, whatever it is, you have to fulfill each of the assignments in order to fulfill the purpose. And when the purpose is not fulfilled, it's not just the world who suffers, it's the individual who was purposed to do the thing. I don't know if you're getting this. Maybe you will if I involve the text. Many of us are familiar with the story of David and Bathsheba. We know that David commits adultery, and then to cover it up, he commits murder. Once Bathsheba's husband is killed, David marries Bathsheba, and now in David's mind, no one will be the wiser. And so I want you to look with me again at 2 Samuel 11, and I want us to really identify what's happening in this text. Please don't miss this. David is at a time in his life. Verse 1 says, it's the spring of the year, and watch what normally happens. Kings go out to war. But David doesn't go out to war. No, the text says David sent Joab and the Israelite army to fight. And at the conclusion of verse 1, it says, however, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. David is purposed to be king. And one of the assignments of being king is going out to fight when it's time to go out and fight. But David does not go out to fight. He abandons his assignment. And because he abandons his assignment, purpose cannot be fulfilled. Understand this, if you will. Sometimes the atrocity of abandonment does not occur to the assignment. It actually occurs to the person who abandoned it. I want you to look at the text, because when you read the text, just verse 1 tells us very simply that they still win the fight. Just because you abandon an assignment does not mean it won't get accomplished. I don't know who this is for. Somebody needs to understand, just because you didn't do what you needed to do does not mean it's not going to get done. But what happens is when you abandon the assignment, you lose out on the part of the purpose that was supposed to bless you. I don't know who I am assigned to this morning, but I believe wholeheartedly you've been in a point where you've been trying to decide which of your assignments you were going to fulfill, not realizing that by missing out, abandoning assignments, you were missing out on purpose. And now here you are, not as developed, not as matured, not as wise, and not as strong as you're supposed to be, because you were picking and choosing which assignments you wanted to perform and which ones you would abandon, not realizing that every abandoned assignment damages the person who was assigned to do it. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking a break, but I shouldn't be at break, David, when I'm supposed to be in battle. I shouldn't be at break when I'm supposed to be fulfilling an assignment. But just because you don't do it, it doesn't mean it's not going to be accomplished. I want you to move a little further with me in this text and understand something, that when assignments are abandoned, appetites are appeased. If you're taking notes, that would be a good place to write point 1. When assignments are abandoned, appetites are appeased. The purpose of some assignments, and I don't know if this is going to bless you or not, it blesses me. The purpose of some assignments is the prevention of certain peril. In other words, sometimes your assignment is there not just for it to be done, but for you to do it. Y'all lean in, because I think this is going to help you. When you do your assignment, you're protected from what could happen if you didn't. Oh, it's quiet in the church. It's quiet out there too. I can tell. I can feel the energy through the camera. I can tell you're quiet because you don't like that. Y'all know what it is. When adults in the room talking, at least it used to be this way when I was growing up, when the adults were talking and the kids would be in the room and everybody could be having good fun. But if the topic of conversation shifted to something that they didn't want the children to hear, they sent us out the room. They sent us out the room so that they could talk. And sometimes it wasn't that what they were talking about was bad in and of itself. It was just the fact that we didn't need to be exposed to it. Because if we were exposed to it, then we had to bear the consequences or the responsibility of the knowledge we had. So they would send us out the room. And it was necessary for us to leave that space and not try to eavesdrop. Well, some of us, we haven't understood yet that sometimes God is protecting us by moving us through an assignment. Sometimes God has the intention of keeping you from some stuff by giving you something to do that takes you into a place of protection. I hope you're hearing this. I really do. If David had been where he was supposed to be, he never would have seen Bathsheba. I wish we could just put an automatic rewind on David's life, because when David wakes up, according to verse 2, from his afternoon nap, he's the king, he's chilling, he takes his nap, and then he gets out and walks on the rooftop of his palace. He's okay, that's his palace, he can do that. He surveys the country that he's reigning over, and he sees something. It catches his eye. His appetite has been aroused. And because his appetite has been aroused, he takes claim to appease his appetite. But the appetite would never have been aroused if David had been where David was supposed to be. Because David wasn't where he was supposed to be, then what was already in him took control. I don't know if you're ready for all of this morning, but sometimes I win just for being where I'm supposed to be the moment I'm supposed to be there. Who am I talking to on this good Sunday morning? Sometimes the victory is mine just being I am where I am supposed to be at the time I'm supposed to be there. David already had a problem with women. He already has a bunch of wives, but he gets greedy because of what he sees when he's out of position. Who other than Terry Jr. is this message for? Honestly, some of us don't understand that God puts us on assignment, sends us sometimes places we don't want to do, causes us to do things we don't want to be, puts us around people we sometimes don't want to be around, and his intention is not to challenge us. His intention is to protect us, and we miss out when we go against the plan of God, trying to do what pleasures us, because when we do what pleasures us, we lose the protection that was automatically attached to the plan of God. Watch how strong the appetite is. David's appetite is so strong. You read the text. By the time David finds out she's the wife of Uriah the Hittite, and honestly, that alone is a point that passes us by. She's the wife of Uriah the Hittite. He's not an Israelite. He's a foreigner who lives and resides in Israel. He's doing for the king, based on now they having adopted this place as his home. And because of that, and David's appetite, he has taken what does not belong to him. He has taken of what is not even a part of him. I don't want you to miss this. I think I got enough time to hit this second point. Watch this. It's the danger now of the abandoned assignment. When assignments are abandoned, not only are appetites appeased, I want you to catch this, but arrangements are made and accomplices are sought. By the time you get to verse 8, and I want you to read all of this, we'll have to finish some of this on next week, but by the time you get to verse 8, David is involving other people to help him cover it up. Lean in. Who have you tried to pull into your mess? Because sometimes nobody, well, what's the phrase? I think misery loves company. When we get into a situation of our own making, we see that things are not going the way that they need to go, then we try to involve other people. If you can get them off track, it covers up how much you are off track. Y'all ain't gonna talk to me. The real hope when we pull others into our messiness is that they are as dastardly as we are. I know you ain't really gonna like this because I'm getting ready to expose some people. David calls Uriah home. And he tries to get Uriah to go home and sleep with his wife, because then David's sin won't be found out. But Uriah doesn't respond the way David wants him to respond. But that's what happens. We want people to respond the way we would respond. We want other folk to operate like we would operate. And that's honestly the reason why in some situations we think the worst of people, because we know what we would do in certain situations. And so we anticipate and expect, rather we assign the same behavior to everybody else. Sometimes we don't like people because we feel like they have the privilege and opportunity to do the very same stuff that's in our own minds to do. But Uriah doesn't do it. And so David now has to get into a mode of making arrangements. Let me ask you a question. How often do you engage other people and other things trying to cover up your mess? How often are you trying to add layer over layer over layer in an attempt to hide the thing that never should have happened? I know this is probably not a comfortable message, but in reality, it's where a lot of us can find ourselves. It is not always with physical sin. Some of us, we aren't even in the church we're supposed to be in, and we're trying to hide by joining ministry on top of ministry on top of ministry. And the only reason we're even at the church that we are attending right now is because we're running from the assignment that we actually had. Y'all playing with my microphone even when I'm on TV. This don't make no sense. Ain't nobody saying nothing back to me. It's honestly the abandonment that we practice wholeheartedly. And then when we realize we could get caught, we make arrangements We try to involve or attach accomplices. That's not all that we do. I'll show you something else we do. When assignments are abandoned, allegiances are abdicated. Look at verse 11, would you please? We didn't read that far, but you need to see this. Verse 10 and 11, when David heard that Uriah had not gone home, he summoned him and asked, "What's the matter? Why didn't you go home last night after being away for so long?" Uriah replied, "The ark and the armies of Israel and Judah are living in tents, and Joab and my master's men are camping in the open fields. How could I go home to wine and dine and sleep with my wife? I swear that I would never do such a thing." Uriah is more loyal to the army than David is. See, here's what happens. When you abandon your assignment, you prove to yourself and everybody else that you are the only one that matters. Because let me help you. Remember, if you will, at the introduction of this message, I told you that one of the purposes of purpose is to perform something on the person who is purposed. God is trying to do some things in you through the assignments that he allots you, and when you don't do it, you rob yourself of the purpose working in you. David has robbed himself, and he has lost his own allegiance because he has shown how selfish he can be. How selfish are you? How selfish are you? Who are you willing to hurt in order to keep up your appearances? How selfish are you? Who are you willing to take from in order that you can have? How selfish are you that you would go against something that you know to be right in order so that you can be more comfortable? It's what we do when we abandon our assignments. And when we abandon our assignments, we disqualify ourselves from purpose being complete in its work. I think for a lot of us, we've got to understand the necessity of purpose doing what it needs to do in us, regardless of our attempts to abandon it. It becomes the challenge every day now that I got to see how my day-to-day assignment is connected to my growth, to my development, to my becoming. This is how God works through the assignment. Next week, we'll take a look a little further at David's plight and find out how it is that we can recover when we've abandoned our assignment. One thing that I believe that you should not abandon this morning is the opportunity to make Jesus the Lord of your life. I think for a lot of us, we're exactly where we are because we've abandoned assignments in a lot of ways. And we've not fulfilled the call, the pull of God on our lives. You can change that today. You can make him number one. Not only that, you can connect with his church. Be connected to a family of faith. Some of you have been tuned in to the Citadel Church and these services the entire time of the pandemic, and that blesses us. We pray that you were ministered to. But you've done so, and you know you need a family. You need a church home. It would be our privilege to be that church home for you. If you're making a decision in any regard, we want to celebrate it with you. Would you let us know that you've asked Jesus to come into your life, to lead you? Would you let us know if you desire to be a part of this church? CitadelChurchJax@yahoo.com. That's the email address. If you'll send us an email, allow us the privilege, the opportunity to celebrate the decision that you have made. I want to pray with you and speak God's blessings over your life. I trust that in this week, you'll allow the purpose of God to work on your life, not just through your life. Whatever God has assigned you to do, it's supposed to help you too. Don't abandon it. Don't walk away from it. Allow God to get the glory out of your life. I speak God's blessings over you by putting his name on your head and declaring over you the very thing that the Lord himself prescribed as your blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord cause his face to shine on you and to be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace, each and every one of you. In Jesus' name, amen. Family, we love you. Be encouraged in this week. Fulfill your assignment. We'll see you on Tuesday night, all right?